Chapter 40, Parachuting In. By now, everyone knows the colloquial definition of crazy as someone who keeps doing the same things the same old ways expecting different results. We certainly aren't crazy because we've tried all kinds of new things and approaches to problems from all sorts of different angles. Unfortunately, up to now, we kept getting the same results. So I guess we're only half crazy. The life of a church is a living organism, and growth is mandatory for living things to exist. Sometimes that growth is above the surface where everyone can obviously see the change, and other times it's below the surface where only those who know where to look can see it. The central change that we had been chasing for some time was that we needed to grow in attendance and participation from resourced people. We mean people who have the emotional, spiritual, and life skills to pass on to others in teaching, training, and guiding. We needed people who have the social and business connections outside of our church to help those who are unresourced people. We need people who have the funds to tithe and give to support and sustain the ministry of this church. In short, we needed to be at a minimum attendance of about 175 on Sunday mornings to have enough of a mix of people to sustain us. But we were still only half that. The attendance growth can't just keep being an increase from the homeless population or the marginalized and poor. The unresourced of our community. Increased attendance needed to be the resourced people. Unless there was incredible advancement in the previously mentioned ideas to generate income, we wouldn't make it through the year. And I could already tell by March of 2013 that if present growth trends continued just as they had been, it wouldn't be enough to carry us on to 2014. We'd borrowed $140,000 over the past 2 years to transform our building and sustain the current ministry. We knew we were going to need to borrow again just to cover our operating costs, unless a miraculous turnaround came in a matter of weeks. Initially, we only paid the interest on the loan, which was about $400 per month. In the next year or two, we would have to start paying back the full loan, and those payments would triple or quadruple. If we couldn't make ends meet under present conditions, how would we add that extra expense and make things work? We aren't the federal government, after all, even if we were kind of acting like them. Our board had been very real in assessing our situation and had been real in presenting information to our congregation. At our annual meeting in January, ironically at the same time that we were presenting our budget options for potential success, our board felt duty-bound to inform the congregation that we had 4 choices in front of us this year. If we failed, there had to be a backup plan in case our budget ideas didn't work in time. Something had to radically change since our growth had not proven sufficient. These were the 4 choices we thought were before us. 1, sell and move. The questions remain, to where would we move? Who among our members would stay with us? How much would it cost us to build out a new facility? 2, share the site. The questions to resolve here are with whom and for how much. We had explored this previously, but the prospects didn't pan out. 3, fund the pastor's salary from outside. Is it possible to create a community development corporation that could get grants or foundation support? Churches have a very hard time doing this in general, and funds for pastoral work are almost non-existent. It also takes up to a year or more simply to create a separate nonprofit agency. 4, go to a part-time pastor. This would mean finding someone new, probably with less experience, because I would move on and find work to support my family. The board's concern was, and how long would it take someone new and part-time to reestablish the connections and favor we currently have with the city, the local businesses, the nonprofits in town, and the homeless and the poor in our population? Frankly, we'd been stumped on what to do and simply started praying for Jesus to show us what he wanted. The congregation voted quietly to put the property up for sale, figuring if things turned around, we could pull it off the market or turn down a bad deal. But if a wonderful offer came to us, we would have more choices before us. In the middle of February, a visitor stopped by the offices midweek, representing a large church plant from an area megachurch. The entity was a spinoff of the giant megachurch in Post Falls, Idaho, which at one time was touted as the fastest growing church in America. I was informed that the mother church had some 15,000 people at services in a town where the entire population was about 30,000. This group had recently moved into a location way out on the north side of town. They were growing so much that they were already considering another location and wanted something near downtown. Their representative was asking if we would be interested in leasing our building to them on Sunday nights for a 5:30 service. Perhaps God was deciding that option number 2 of the 4 was the one he wanted us to pursue. After several weeks of meetings and negotiations, we agreed and signed a 6-month deal with an option to extend if needed. They only wanted a 6-month because our auditorium only sat 250 and they were sure to outgrow it in that amount of time. We agreed to allow them to start an evening service in our location, which planned to launch on Easter Sunday of that year. This meant we had to move our Sunday night AA group to a nearby Westminster church because they could not easily change their time slot. The lease wouldn't entirely change our financial situation, but it would help a lot. We knew we would work out some kinks in the scheduling and timing after our Sunday meals, but all in all, our leadership had a very good experience with theirs, and we believed that they would prove an asset to our community and to the kingdom of God in Spokane. After all, Jesus owns the site, and he decides what he wants to do here, so we were trusting Jesus to do great things for both of our churches. I admit, I was totally wrong. For the longest time in working for church revitalization in a poor downtown neighborhood, I had a theory. My theory came from observations that a small congregation just can't really grow in such tough soil. The obstacles to overcome in a downtrodden environment in an area with a tough reputation, with extremely limited resources of people and income, make such a venture virtually impossible. Everyone knows, for instance, that without young families, you can't get a church to stabilize, financially or socially. And yet, how do you grow a preschool ministry with kids or grow an elementary program with only a few children? I don't know any parents who want to bring their preschool child to a church where there are no other little ones or where there might only be one other preschooler in the class. Young families like the energy of strong and bustling activity, full of lots of other families with whom their children can play and learn. So until we can have 6 to 10 kids in a program, young families just move on to somewhere that already has it going. That same can be said for youth ministry, singles ministry, and many other smaller demographic group specialties. People like to meet and worship with others who are like themselves. Growing from nothing is difficult. For 4 years, I had told people that I think one of the ways to survive in a downtown urban context is for a group of 100 to 150 people to parachute into an existing facility with all of their staff, programs, children's ministries, youth outreaches, social networks fully established. A core group of that size could overcome the obstacles of trying to grow something from nothing. They would arrive with enough energy, enthusiasm, strength, and resources to leap to the next level. When their church offered to rent our facility on Sunday nights, I thought, this is it. This is what's needed for success to happen here. 125 dedicated and committed people parachuting into the neighborhood to build and sustain a viable church. I admit that I was jealous that they were going to succeed with all of their resources and personnel where I couldn't. There were even a few private talks about whether we might move to Sunday night so they could have the coveted Sunday morning time slot to seat the large amount of people who would come. After 4 months, they quit. People weren't coming. The neighborhood was too rough and dirty. The locals often act uncouth and savage. The guy stripping down to his birthday suit in the men's room to take a sponge bath was way too much for them. We hadn't even had that one. The locals can smell bad too. First, the young families quit coming, and then the rest just began to fade. In 4 months, the 125 previously committed people had dwindled to less than half that number. I was shocked. Their church is so known around our region that they can write their logo in crayon on a cardboard box and set it up in someone's front lawn, and 100 people would probably show up. All that strength, support, and resources, though, weren't enough. So my theory proved wrong. Oh, I know the evening time slot isn't the best. The facility wasn't designed to young people's specifications and tastes, but still, incubating the church for a year and then moving it elsewhere to accommodate the growth should have happened. But you can't just build a suburban ministry downtown. One can't do exactly the same thing here that one would do in the suburbs and expect it to work. The only way that could be accomplished is by chasing off all the locals and preventing them from participating in church activities, or for that matter, even being on the grounds. We opted not to go that route. Maybe we're dumb. Tanya and I recently took a trip to Seattle to speak with some other churches who had a reputation working with the poor and homeless. You have homeless actually attending your services? One young staff woman asked incredulously. We could never get them to come to church," she added. Their church finally moved all of its homeless work to a separate location about a mile away. Everywhere we went, we heard the same thing. People doing homeless work don't actually have the homeless come to church, or be part of the community, or participate in regular worship, nor Bible study. Homeless work is outreach only and stays that way, out there somewhere. But we did it differently. We invited the poor, the broken, the helpless, the wounded, the feeble, the lost, the lonely, and the hungry to come and be a part of what we do. Either we are really something special, or we're just plain stupid. Still, it sounds a lot like Jesus' teaching, even if we aren't as smart as other churches.